And that's why companies like Netscape, Internet Explorer there was a war and a battle for the browsers. And at that time, they saw it as a way to, if you can build that interface, that software, that's going to be the thing that people are going to be using. And you can see how it's kind of morphed over the years. And now Google Chrome is the largest out there. But there's other ones as well that offer different options and different choices, similar to how wallets are right now. Next, 2000s. We had the dot-com bubble burst. What had happened there is you had all of these companies that emerged that weren't providing much value, and anything with the name internet was raising a lot of money. A lot of capital was going to these companies, and when things don't provide value, eventually they blow up, and that's what we saw in the 2000s. There was a massive reset. It didn't mean that the internet wasn't going to be something great. It didn't mean that there weren't going to be great companies. What it did mean, though, is that you were doing something that didn't have any value and it was all being hyped up. Things are going to eventually turn into a bubble and they're going to blow up, and that's what happened there. And then things take time, and over time, they get to figure themselves out. And that's what we've seen with a lot of companies that came out of the bubble there and that have created a lot of value right now. But it was a learning lesson, and it's lessons that we can tie into the crypto space. For those that have been around long enough in the crypto space and have been along around to see the dot-com bubble, a lot of similarities that you can see there of value that actually isn't followed through. And when there's not value, you're going to see it eventually going to blow up. At the same time in the 2000s, there was a rise of peer-to-peer technologies and decentralized technologies. We had Napster that first emerged. We had other file sharing protocols that came out. And over time, centralized systems, like something like Napster was, eventually get replaced by things like BitTorrent and peer-to-peer systems where there aren't centralized systems that can be taken down, which is what happened to Napster. But along the way, there's learning lessons and things come out of it, and people recognize the power of decentralized networks. And this is when I actually started to really understand in the early 2000s how decentralized networks were going to be the future. Also then, in the 2000s, you started to have the rise of, and kind of relating to the bubble, you have the rise of Web 2. And I'm not a big fan of the terms like this, but sometimes it's easier to term things in a way that people can understand. And I see Web 2 as models that mostly centralized Web 2 models, things that rose up a lot even to do with things in the dot-com bubble, but a lot of centralization occurring around a few different companies, and models that are not actually there, that are serving a lot of people, and a lot of kind of destructive models, a lot of extraction models, a lot of models where the users are becoming the product. And that rise up of social media and rise up of a number of different elements there was kind of instrumental in leading up to things like the rise of mobile technology. Rise of mobile now democratized computing power into people's hands on the go. You've got app stores that emerged at that time, different apps coming out, giving people the power to do things that they couldn't do before and providing value in different services in that sense. So this we saw in the 2000s there, big rise of models that people use and people use today, but recognizing also that these models are now, a lot of them, on the decline because of the deficiencies in the way that they're doing things. (2010s). Now there's a lot more going in the 2000s and 10s, but relevance to myself and relevance to the people here and relevance to the project that we'll be bringing forward, you had the rise of Bitcoin. And when I heard about Bitcoin in 2012, it radically changed my life. And for months I was delving into it and understanding it because it put together so many different aspects of decentralized technology, about freedom, which is something that's always been really important to me, empowerment, the ability to be my own bank. And it's something that I grasped right away because of my experience in the past history of computers and communication and modems, and even at the time economics, which I'd been studying after the crisis in the US in 2008 and the housing collapse and the banking crisis. It's like, okay, here's the problems, but what solutions are there that can empower people and give people the ability to do things like be their own bank? So when I heard about Bitcoin, it was the summer of 2012, and just dove in headfirst, not understanding how I hadn't heard of it before. And then I started to look for others to start talking. As Leo had mentioned, it's about community, and you want to get together with people that are excited about these technologies, and you want to start conversing with them. And at the time, there was nothing out there. I had previously been to a site called meetup.com where people get together and they have events around certain topics, and I had been there. I was like, oh, there's no Bitcoin meetup here in Toronto. Maybe there's other people interested in this technology. And I said, well, let's start it up. I learned that in order to do something that you're interested and excited about, it's good to be that center of gravity and to get people around it. Because it hadn't existed, I was now at a better time to utilize this than I was when I first got into the internet, right? I had decades already, a couple decades in business, been an entrepreneur for a while, had my computing background, all these things that made it a perfect situation for me to say, I think I can take this and bring people together. And at the first meetup that I hosted, which was 10 years ago to the day of Thursday, this last Thursday, November 3rd, 2012, about 8 people got together at a place called Popper's Pub at Bloor in Bathurst, and we hosted the first Bitcoin meetup. At that event, we've got at least one person that I know that's in this room. Ernest, where are you? There you are. And he's got his camera going there. Ernest was there with me, as was a very young gentleman named Vitalik Buterin, who showed up for the first meetup as well. And we had a couple other people relevant in the space, like Peter Todd and Dino Mark. But that meetup kind of became the genesis of events here in Toronto. That meetup led to a relationship with me and Vitalik that grew over the next year. I had started to build wallets at that time, not soon after, and Vitalik was helping me with what I was doing with my company. And at the end of 2013 in November, he showed me this white paper for a project that he had developed based on his travels around the world and working on different blockchain projects and seeing what was going on. And he had dropped out of University of Waterloo and was traveling the world, and he recognized the problem.